Okay, so that's kind of one half of your drawing is proportion studies, and remember, there's two things that we're trying to do with anatomy and in this class in general is to study proportion and then move it around in 3D space, right? So I have a couple proportion pieces on here, and in addition to this study, I can kind of make it really small. I can go like, okay, that's the middle, that is the hips, and see, this is always hard for me. It's like it feels like I don't have enough space for the head, so I can work through that because remember the reason this rule that I created was just off of me just now measuring my body with the t-square, right? So if something doesn't feel natural, just change it, right? So there's the head, there's there's the shoulders, and then here's the connective muscles. Okay, here's the pelvis, here's the legs, right? And then I know I want about half, and that's where the knee is, right? So remember, we're trying to build these instruments for you to study, just things that you can doodle. I know the hand will end about here, right? Instead of a more, like this is maybe more analytical, like just these faster gesture drawings are really valuable. Now look at this, see how long I made this? And then if I imagine swinging that down, oh, that's too long. That should be the wrist right there, and that should be the hand, right? So if you can then on this, for this assignment, make yourself fast and have this conversation with yourself where you are, you're checking those distances and you're trying to make something, and whatever, it can be geometric or whatever, but you're trying to just flow through this form and teach yourself those structures really quickly, right? So okay, so that is one part of it, but I think there's something about that conversation with yourself, like just talking to yourself, saying like, having those little checks in place, knowing that the hand will always go to the center of the pelvis, or the palm of the hand always goes to the center of the pelvis, and being able to check it just really quickly, even in miniature, right? So this proportional study looks pretty solid, right? I don't know about what I drew originally. I feel like maybe the head doesn't have enough extension or something, so that's why you're always, you're always just checking, rechecking, check in with your intuition, check in with whatever rule systems you create. So basically this piece is all about anatomical studies. So what they look like is, exactly what we've been doing, just little proportional studies on this side. But then what I would like you to do, all right, so remember rib cage, get fast at it, and this is all muscle, right? This is all connection. And then go back and evaluate it, right? Is this really half? Is this really a quarter? Maybe that's my problem. Like, I don't think the rib cage is a full quarter. Like, maybe it needs to be a little smaller, right? Cool. But as long as you start from somewhere, and it's nice to push against your own rules. See, I'm trying to get the wrist. There's the center of the pelvis. There's the wrist. There's the palm of the hand. That's all I'm trying to do, right? Does that hit at the right place? Yeah, pretty much, right? But you can see in this drawing, I have a sense of three-dimensionality. I have a sense of, this figure going in that direction. So you see this shoulder, but this shoulder is hidden, right? Okay, so as you're working through these, and you come up with whatever you want, right? You have these basic structures, and you push against them, right? Like, okay, the rib cage isn't a full quarter. the rib cage isn't fully half of this upper part. And also I like to draw elongated heads. So maybe I adapt my system, make the rib cage just less than a quarter, but it's kind of right. And the more you push against your own rules, the more you refine them, and the more you refine your own style, right? So that's what makes it really powerful. Okay, this is way too scribbly for me to finish anything, but that's why I have a leg table. All right, so as you can see, you're trying to study proportion, build your own proportion system that you have access to, right? And then finally, you're trying to move it into 3 dimensions. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to, well, first of all, you can imagine it, right? So just like, like let's start with the rib cage drawing. Then the shoulder, then here's the shoulders, and this is totally to the side. Then here's the head, right? And just let your intuition take over too. Oh, that the jaw needs to extend more. That's when you're powerful, is when you are, you have these rule systems, but you just see them as support, right? So now let's see. All right, this is going to be the center of the body, but remember all those things about the eye line. So let's say the eye line is here, right? So that means we have to be seeing the top of the shoulder, right? We're maybe going to take this space and tilt the whole thing. That line of motion that they have you draw in Marvel Comics is so cool, right? So this is curved. This is the center of the body, and we're still working with those forms, but we're making them 3-dimensional. It's feeling too long to me, right? So always intuitive checks. It's maybe like a superhero, their legs stretched out really far. That's feeling too long, right? Remember, that should only Okay, there's the knee, and there is and this like is hidden. Still will fall along the axis. This leg is further away, so it's smaller. So see this diagonal? I set up the diagonal space just like when we do monsters, right? And then therefore this shoulder, this one should be a little bit lower, right? I just sense that in the space. Now, once we have these established, for some reason, I always have trouble with that length of the bicep. So I almost always just draw that line, and then in that way I can sort of make sure that that's correct. See, I think that should be a little shorter. Cool. Then I have a tapered cone, and I check my hip and make sure that whatever the hand is doing, that it can fall into place right along the midpoint of the hip. Cool. And now, so all of this, these are just, remember, these are just ideas. So I wasn't thinking about, making a female figure, I guess. So I wasn't thinking about the width of any of these things. And I'm not sure about the hand position, but that's okay. I would probably get some, search for some images or take photos of my own hand. But something like this. Here's the wrist, right? We don't know. I'm not looking too closely at the thumb, but the thumb extends from the wrist, right? cool. So this, and then I'm having this thing where the fingers maybe are closer to the camera, so they kind of don't taper in their normal way. They stay. Anyways, that's just my idea, right? I can research this. I can photograph my own hand to fulfill it. But what I'm chiefly looking at is that all the proportion is right, even when this figure is in motion. And it does kind of look like that. This looks too long, right? This looks like it should be a little bit heavier. This is a little more concealed. And keeping that same thing in mind, right? The hand is kind of hidden, and it's further away, so it'd be smaller. Cool. So this is going somewhere. It's not perfect, but it's definitely a good study that I could work from on something else. Something that I could photograph and take into my computer, or something that I could light trace or something like that. And so this is looking pretty good. Let's see, I'm still kind of struggling with just not having enough room for the head. But that's where you sort of take whatever your system is and then just check it. All right, so this is not much different. So there's a lot more intuition involved here, right? But this is not much different than when we were, composing the eye line and then making little forms like this, like a little Snorlax monster, and then making sure that it's in real space and thinking about those rules, right? We're seeing those same rules, like that. Make sure the diagonals all line up. Make sure this might be like Supergirl or something, right? Making sure the diagonals all line up, and just simple things, right? Like something more towards you is bigger, right? And so we have to see how we can see that distance receding. Like that could be that it could be a cubic form, right? It has that same proportional relationship. And also low stakes, right? Like saying I'm just studying this stuff. I don't know, this is kind of my idea for this superhero thing, but for now, for the purposes of this drawing, I just need to do some studying, right? And then and that's all it is. Give yourself that freedom to study and to just think about it. And you'll find things wrong. Boy, I really hate that face that I just drew. But you'll find things right too, and you'll know how to go on to the next phase, right? All right, cool. All right, so I have some pretty good sense here. I feel that this is correct, and I feel like I could go, I could use this as a basis for a drawing, or light table it, transfer it to the computer, or something like that. So the goal of this drawing, now I know that this has been kind of, this drawing does have a purpose and a goal. So you need to study proportions in a straightforward view, right? So study proportions, come up with your own idea of them, and then you need to take your proportional system and start rotating it and making it three-dimensional. So show me all that in this drawing. This is, I think that you should take this drawing to ink in just a little bit, just so you can see what it's like Yukio Shimizu, like how she would finish this drawing and only add the important lines, and what it's like. I just love that sense of working really hard on a structure and then eliminating it, and kind of making it look like it's all really natural. So yeah, that's sort of how she would work. So I think it is nice to finish it. There's something wrong with that head, but that's okay. But yeah, well, I mean, you're just trying to show structure here. So let's see if I can fix it a little. I don't know. But I always give myself another chance in these studies as well. I always make room for my mistakes, and I always keep the stakes low because I know every drawing is going to have a mistake, and every mistake is a chance to do another one, right? So something like this where I don't like this, but I want to be able to explain to myself what's wrong with it, like why I don't like it. I'm not sure yet, but I could probably think about it and figure it out. Cool. So basically what you're trying to do in this drawing is you're trying to show your proportional study, and you're trying to adapt that proportional study into 3 dimensions. This drawing can be mostly pencil, but it should be complete. Pretty much like what I've done. It actually should be, kind of more like many drawings. This is definitely something to take into your sketchbook and just do over and over. And once you come up with these little systems, to always change them and always make new versions of them, and always keep it usable, right? You also always need something, whatever it is, you need a second phase of your process, right? Most people that are bad at drawing, they have one phase, like they do this, and then they say like, oh, that's it. I never know how to render something so it looks realistic. It's because you need something like, drawing in pencil, experimenting with structure, thinking about it over and over and over, and then putting it on a light table and having another phase where you're just looking at light or something like that. In this drawing, we are just looking at structure. So it's fine to see these structural lines, and have that be the only thing that you see. The other thing that I wanted to say is you can, when you're taking a 3D form and or when you're taking your proportions and mapping them into 3-dimensional space and trying to do these little studies, it really helps sometimes to draw from life. So I think that this example by Leonardo Santamaria is just one of the best things that you can draw from. So if you can take your blackboard and get this image somehow, like whether you're viewing it on your phone or you print it out. I just tore it from the magazine. But things like this, where you're seeing the rib cage on top, and then seeing the head sort of drip down from it. Oh my gosh, just exploring those forms, right? Just beautiful. Then, the attachment of the shoulder, and then the extension of the arm, and then finally, and you can even feel where your eye line is, right? See all these people, I feel like I'm looking up at them, so then I think that, except for her, but she's turning away. So I know I'm not level with them. I'm something like, I think my eye line really is right at this guy's back, right? So with that in mind, you can derive a lot from studying Santamaria's forms and just doing sketches off of how he rotates this form in space, right? Obviously you can take full classes in classical art training. You used to have to take dissection, and you would have to memorize you'd have to commit all of this work to memorizing anatomy. So you'd be able to name every single muscle that's represented here. But I think there's something about just just drawing the forms, coming up with the schema, right? So the schema is just saying like, oh, this is a sphere, this is a cylinder, that's a tapered cylinder, and then adapting it and always changing it and trying to own it, and then working from the work of another artist, or you could Google Olympians or something like that, right? Like you could look at people in the Olympics or dancers or something, and then just look at how those shapes are managed, right? Oh, that's beautiful. Just the simplicity of that arm, and then the curve as it comes to the fold, and then the taper towards the elbow, and then look at the shadow, how the shadow shows the entire physiology, right? Gosh, to me, that's incredibly, like, learning this shape, being able to use it for my own drawings, that is really, really powerful, and it's accurate. You can always take an anatomy class later on, but I think what I'm trying to stress to you in drawing one is to come up with a schema, right? So it's basically a plan for a person, even if it's not a perfect plan, and then to sort of be able to control that schema, to move those proportions around in 3D space, and then to be able to draw from observation, like draw from photographs. People will probably not sit for you, but if you're drawing from the work of another artist, or you're drawing from photographs, and you still have that schema in mind, and you can see it in their work too, right? And ask yourself questions like, oh, how did they get this foreshortening done, right? Like, this is so beautiful, but it's sort of like the image is back a little. We know that this isn't the real length of the forearm, so how did they make this work with the forearm being shorter, slanted back into space, and can I draw it myself, right? So once you create a schema or a plan for the body, then you're able to sort of apply it to observation, and to see how the drawings of other artists work, and to see how accurate that schema is to real life, and to always be, practicing and perfecting it, so so as you can see, my original drawing, it looks kind of like the least natural of the one on the page, right? It's because the schema or the rule system isn't enough, right? Like, you have to have your emotions, you have to have your emotion, your intuition, and you have to have true observation as well. But when you bring all those things together, I'm not super feeling anything that I drew on this page, but it's showing it's developed my sense of proportion and schema. It's developed my sense of moving the figure in space. And if I'm able to take some photographs and bring all this together, then it'll be really powerful, right? So I have kind of my conceptual plan, my ability to rotate things in space, and I can check myself by thinking about my emotions. And then when I apply all those tools to observation or to something I photographed, then all those tools kind of support each other perfectly, and I'm able to do whatever I want, basically.